All right, short videos that are code specific. I am going to try and be brief because you need this information quickly and concisely. Here we go. Okay, individual code diagnosis time. P0740. This code is the bane of my existence. It's a code for torque converter clutch malfunctioning or not locking up or failing to lock up or otherwise failing to communicate. 740 is a code, unfortunately, that can be caused by different things and is very difficult to diagnose. And in fact, I am not a transmission expert enough to tell you exactly what's going on. I suppose if you have a 740, you have to do a couple of things to try and get closer to a diagnosis. One would be to do the test where you put a meter across the solenoid pack at various points and check its values. If you had anomalous readings by looking at the resistance of the solenoid pack, that would lead you to want to replace the solenoid pack. There's another thing called the TCC, the torque converter clutch control solenoid, which can go bad. Very cheap and relatively easy to replace, but hard to diagnose. After that, usually you're going to see it's going to be the torque converter itself. And my feeling is that if it's mechanically the torque converter, it's going to have other symptoms that you can detect, which would be chatter or torque converter slip. And the way you steer yourself towards finding out that it is actually the torque converter clutches have worn out is look at the amount of slip the computer is recording and figure out if that's within spec, or try and force it to slip. Another thing I suppose you could do is put in a friction modifier and see if that won't eliminate the code, but it may modify the symptoms. If it does, then you know that it's probably the clutches and the torque converter. Replacing the torque converter isn't particularly rocket science, but isn't particularly cheap either. Usually about 8 hours of labor and $300-400 for a converter. The 740 can also be caused by a variety of things that are internal to the transmission and basically boil down to a rebuild or a refresh or something like that. I don't have enough knowledge to define those things specifically, but 740 is a very tricky code to diagnose, and made even trickier by the fact that when you take it to a transmission shop, they're going to say, oh, you need a new transmission, is the way of things. It is a code that I hope to get better at. It's one of the areas of knowledge I'd like to improve. Hope some of that helps.
She's a goddamn lovely man. She's a